The sun blazed over the tarmac at Miami International Airport, and all eyes turned as a sleek, obsidian-black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up near the private hangars. A tall black man stepped out, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit that fit him like royalty. His polished Oxfords clicked against the pavement as he made his way toward the Gulfstream G650 waiting on the runway. This wasn't just any private jet, it was his. Marcus Devlin, age 38, was a self-made billionaire. His fortune came from tech, real estate, and a series of bold investments that others had called impossible. But Marcus didn't do impossible, he made it inevitable. As he approached the aircraft, a uniformed pilot stood at the base of the stairway. Captain Reynolds, a white man in his mid-50s, squinted suspiciously at Marcus, then glanced at the clipboard in his hand. "Can I help you, sir?" the pilot asked. Stiffly, Marcus gave a polite smile. "No need. I'm Marcus Devlin. This is my jet. I believe you're flying me to New York." Captain Reynolds' eyebrows twitched. He looked Marcus up and down, then let out a short laugh, cold and dismissive. "I'm sorry, sir, but I think you're mistaken. This jet is reserved for Mr. Devlin." Marcus's smile faded. "I am Mr. Devlin." The pilot shook his head. "I don't think so. Step away from the aircraft, or I'll be forced to call security." Marcus stared at him, stunned. His name was etched into the plane. He owned the runway. And yet, here he was, judged and denied, just for the color of his skin. He took a deep breath, the call that changed everything. Marcus clenched his jaw, trying to keep his cool. He had experienced racism before, but this wasn't some store clerk or stranger on the street. This was his aircraft, his crew, and yet he was being treated like an intruder. The pilot had already turned his back and was reaching for his radio. "Security, we've got a situation at Hangar 7. Possible trespasser," he said calmly, as if Marcus were some threat, not the man signing his paychecks. "Unbelievable," Marcus muttered, reaching into his pocket and pulling out his phone. He scrolled through his contacts and pressed a name labeled simply, Avery, Ops Director. On the second ring, a calm, professional voice answered, "Mr. Devlin, good morning. Everything set for your flight to Teterboro?" "Apparently not," Marcus replied dryly. "Your pilot just tried to kick me off my own jet." Avery was silent for half a second too long. "What? He doesn't believe I'm the owner. He's calling security." The sound of frantic typing could be heard on the other end. "Give me 60 seconds, sir." As Marcus hung up, the pilot turned back, arms crossed. "Sir, I've called airport security. Please stand back." Marcus didn't move. He just stared at the man, his expression unreadable. Exactly 55 seconds later, the terminal doors burst open, and a woman in a black blazer sprinted across the tarmac. Behind her, a team of Devlin Aviation staff followed. She reached the pilot first. "Captain Reynolds," she barked, breathless. "Step away from Mr. Devlin. Now." The pilot blinked. "Wait, this is Mr. Devlin?" "Yes," she snapped. "And you just made a career-ending mistake." Reynolds turned pale. Marcus folded his arms, his eyes locked on the pilot's face. The tables had turned, the air on the tarmac turned ice-cold despite the Miami heat. Captain Reynolds stepped back slowly, his face drained of all color. The woman in the blazer turned to Marcus, her tone instantly changing. "Mr. Devlin, I am so sorry for this. I'm Dana, Deputy Director of Flight Operations. I had no idea you hadn't been recognized. We'll handle this." Marcus gave a curt nod. "Handled how, exactly?" Before she could respond, 2 airport security guards arrived, slightly confused as they scanned the scene. Captain Reynolds attempted to salvage the situation, still clearly unsure of who he had just insulted. "There's obviously been a misunderstanding," he said, nervously. "I didn't know," Dana cut him off sharply. "You didn't ask, Captain. You made an assumption. A dangerous one." Marcus took a slow step forward, his presence commanding. You looked at me and didn't see a CEO. You didn't even see a man. You saw a stereotype. The security guards watched silently as tension crackled in the air. One of them recognized Marcus and quietly whispered to the other. They both backed off, realizing who was in charge here. Dana took a deep breath. Mr. Devlin, please allow me to escort you aboard. We'll have another pilot ready in 10 minutes. Captain Reynolds will be grounded indefinitely pending review. The pilot's head whipped around. Wait, what? I've flown for this company for 12 years, and now you'll have to explain this to HR, Dana replied coldly. Marcus didn't flinch. He turned to look at the jet, then back at Reynolds. You just cost yourself more than a job, Captain. You cost yourself your integrity. Then he turned and climbed the steps of his own jet, without looking back. Inside, the silence said everything. As Marcus stepped into the cabin of his private jet, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The stress from the confrontation outside faded into the plush luxury of the aircraft's interior. Everything inside the G650 had been custom designed to his specifications: Italian leather seating, real mahogany wood panels, and a full digital suite for in-flight work and entertainment. That he sank into one of the cream-colored armchairs, ran a hand over the armrest, and exhaled slowly. The silence wasn't just comfort, it was power. This was his space, untouched by doubt or ignorance. A stewardess entered a moment later, her demeanor professional yet deeply apologetic. Mr. Devlin, I'm so sorry for what just happened. Can I get you anything to drink? Just water, thank you, he said, offering a brief smile. She nodded and retreated to the small galley. Moments later, Dana entered the cabin, standing by the doorway with her hands folded. I know it's not my place, sir, she began, but I want you to know, this incident will be taken seriously. You don't deserve to be treated like that. Marcus nodded, his tone calm but firm. It's not about me. It's about how many people who aren't billionaires go through this every single day. I have a platform. I have lawyers. But what about the others? Dana looked down, ashamed. You're absolutely right. He leaned back, taking a long sip of water as the hum of the engines powered up outside. The new pilot had arrived. It was almost time to leave. Marcus glanced at his watch. He was still on schedule, but something had shifted. Not in his flight, but in his purpose. This trip to New York wasn't just business anymore. It was personal. As the jet ascended into the sky, Marcus gazed out the window, watching the city shrink beneath him. The ocean sparkled below, but his mind wasn't on the view. It had drifted somewhere else, back to a time before wealth, before respect, before private jets. That he remembered being 10 years old, riding in the back of a rusted-out station wagon with his mother and little sister. They'd been evicted again. It was their third apartment in 2 years. His mother, a nurse working double shifts, had always tried to shield them from the reality of poverty. But Marcus knew. Even at that age, he saw the worry in her eyes and the pain in her back. At school, teachers underestimated him. Classmates mocked his hand-me-down clothes. He remembered a substitute teacher once asking if he was in the right classroom, because, as she'd said, honors math isn't for everyone. He remembered his mom storming into that school the next day, demanding respect for her son. That moment lit a fire in him. He worked harder than anyone. Started coding at 13 on a second-hand laptop. By 16, he was already freelancing as a web developer. He got into MIT on a full scholarship and built his first startup in a dorm room. The rest was history, or at least, that's what people saw. What they didn't see was the rejection. The investors who wouldn't shake his hand. The CEOs who assumed he was just the tech guy. Or the nights he spent awake, wondering if success would ever be enough to overcome prejudice. And now, even with $1 billion net worth and a jet in his name, the world still saw him through the same distorted lens. But Marcus wasn't broken. He was just getting started. The jet glided smoothly through the clouds, and Marcus turned his attention to the sleek tablet in front of him. A calendar notification flashed across the screen: Board Meeting, Devlin Capital Ventures, Manhattan HQ, for 00 p.m. This wasn't just any meeting. It was the most important one of the year. Devlin Capital Ventures was preparing to announce a historic $500 million fund exclusively for minority-owned startups. It would be the largest of its kind, designed to tear down the very barriers that Marcus had fought his entire life to overcome. And now, with his recent experiences fresh in his mind, the mission felt even more urgent that he opened the pitch deck and reviewed the talking points. But he didn't need notes to know what he was going to say. His passion was rooted in real life. Just then, his phone buzzed again. A text from his attorney read: FYI, pilot incident going viral. Someone filmed it. Media outlets already picking it up. Marcus stared at the message, eyebrows raised. He hadn't noticed anyone filming on the tarmac, but it didn't surprise him. These days, every phone was a camera, and every moment had the potential to explode online. That he sighed, unsure how to feel. He didn't want to be the center of another viral controversy. He wanted change, not attention. But maybe, just maybe, this incident could serve as fuel for something bigger. He tapped out a quick response: let it run. No statements yet. Then he sat back and closed his eyes for a moment. When the world forced a spotlight on you, you had two choices: shrink from it, or stand tall and use the stage. Marcus knew exactly what he would do. By the time Marcus's jet touched down at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, the incident had already become a firestorm online. His phone buzzed non-stop with texts, emails, and notifications. The video, grainy but clear, showed the pilot confronting him, refusing to believe Marcus was the owner, and calling security. Another clip showed Dana arriving, chastising the pilot, and confirming his identity. The caption spreading like wildfire read: Pilot denies black billionaire access to his own jet. Marcus's name was trending on social media platforms, with hashtags like #FlyingWhileBlack and #MarcusDevlin climbing rapidly. Influencers, activists, celebrities, even a few politicians, had shared their outrage. Some praised Marcus for his calm demeanor. Others demanded consequences for the pilot and the aviation company, not knowing it was his company. His PR team had already sent 3 emails by the time his assistant, Lexi, met him at the car waiting just beyond the hangar. You're everywhere, Marcus, she said, handing him a tablet. CNN, BBC, even late-night shows are talking about it. They want a statement. Or at least a tweet. He climbed into the back seat of the black SUV, eyes scanning the news feeds. Any fallout internally? He asked. Lexi nodded. Dana suspended the pilot pending termination. Legal is reviewing protocols for bias training, public policy updates, everything. Marcus leaned back in the seat, taking a breath. We'll issue a statement, but not yet. I want the world to feel the weight of this before we give them something polished. Lexi hesitated. Some shareholders might not like that. I don't care what they like, Marcus said firmly. This isn't about stock prices. It's about reality. As the SUV pulled onto the highway toward Manhattan, the skyline loomed ahead like a stage waiting for its speaker, and Marcus Devlin was ready for his spotlight. The SUV weaved through Manhattan traffic, escorted by a pair of security vehicles, until it pulled up outside the towering glass structure that housed Devlin Capital Ventures. Employees stood near the entrance, whispering and pointing discreetly as Marcus stepped out. Some clapped quietly. Others nodded with silent respect. He gave a courteous wave before entering through the revolving doors, flanked by Lexi and 2 security personnel. Inside the marble-floored lobby, a giant screen on the wall displayed a headline from a financial news network: Billionaire Marcus Devlin faces racial profiling, industry reacts. His assistant leaned in. Your board's already in the conference room. Reporters are camped outside the building. Cameras everywhere. Marcus nodded. Let them watch. He took the private elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, the boardroom buzzed with tension. The room was sleek and modern, glass walls, chrome finishes, and a massive digital display showing the firm's current stock metrics. Around the table sat 12 board members, mostly white men, all powerful investors. Some looked supportive. Others looked nervous. "Marcus," said Greg Langford, the board chair, standing. "Glad you made it. Quite a morning, huh?" Marcus approached calmly, removing his jacket and placing it on the back of his chair. "Morning's just getting started." Langford forced a smile. "Listen, about that pilot, terrible incident. But the press is going crazy. Some of us think a neutral statement might help ease the—" "No," Marcus interrupted, locking eyes with him. "We're not sweeping this under the rug. If we do, we're part of the problem." Another board member, older and skeptical, leaned forward. "With all due respect, Marcus, you're running a business, not a movement." Marcus didn't flinch. "Wrong. I'm running both." And the room fell into a charged silence. The room remained quiet for a long moment after Marcus's declaration. Some board members looked uncomfortable. Others intrigued. But none could deny the power in his words. "I built this company to succeed," Marcus continued, voice steady, "but not at the cost of silence. Silence allows bias to thrive. That pilot's assumption wasn't an isolated case, it's a reflection of a larger issue. And if we have the platform to address it, then we must." Greg Langford cleared his throat. "We agree in principle, Marcus, but going public in this way, without legal review, without a PR filter, it's risky." "So is doing nothing," Marcus countered. He tapped his tablet and projected a new slide onto the large screen. It read, "The Devlin Initiative, $500 million fund for minority founders." "We're announcing this today," he said firmly. "And we're not just cutting checks, we're changing how venture capital looks at black and brown entrepreneurs. This is legacy work, not charity." Another board member, Camille Ortiz, one of the few women in the room, leaned in with a nod. "This is long overdue." "I'm in." Marcus looked around the room. "I don't need unanimous approval. I need commitment. From those who understand that our values are just as important as our valuations." The room remained still. Then, slowly, hands began to rise. Point 1, point 2, point 7, point 10. All but one. Marcus met the eyes of the lone holdout, Richard Malone, the oldest and most traditional member of the board. "You sure you want to go down this road, Marcus?" Malone asked. Marcus stood tall. "I already own the road. I'm just clearing the traffic." The vote passed, the mission was in motion. By late afternoon, the lobby of Devlin Capital Ventures had transformed into a buzzing media hub. News vans lined the block. Journalists, influencers, and camera crews packed into the conference space on the ground floor, all waiting for one thing, Marcus Devlin's first public statement since the incident. A row of microphones stood at the podium. The backdrop behind it displayed the Devlin Capital logo alongside a bold phrase. "Equity isn't optional." Backstage, Lexi adjusted Marcus's tie one last time. "You sure you want to do this live? We could still pre-record it, control the message." "No," Marcus replied. "They didn't pre-record what happened to me. So I'm not filtering the truth." With that, he stepped onto the stage. The room hushed instantly. Cameras zoomed in. Microphones flicked on. All eyes were locked on him. He didn't start with a script. He started with his story. 2 days ago, I was denied access to my own plane. Not because I didn't have credentials. Not because I posed a threat. But because someone couldn't imagine a black man owning a jet. Murmurs rippled through the room. "I'm not here to shame that man," Marcus continued. "I'm here to shine a light on what millions experience every day, without the cameras, without the headlines, without the power to fight back." He then unveiled the $500 million initiative on the projector screen behind him. "This fund will give overlooked entrepreneurs the backing they've always deserved. This isn't a favor. This is correction." The room erupted in applause. One reporter shouted, "Do you think what happened to you was racism?" Marcus looked directly into the camera. I think it was a symptom of a much deeper sickness. And I plan to be part of the cure. The press conference ended, but the impact had just begun. Within hours, clips of Marcus's speech dominated news cycles. Social media exploded with praise and debate. Civil rights leaders applauded him. Celebrities reposted his statement. Business networks dissected his every word. Some hailed him a trailblazer. Others accused him of turning a personal incident into political theater, but Marcus didn't care about the noise. He cared about the effect. At Devlin Capital headquarters, his executive team gathered in the strategy room, watching live metrics. The company's website was flooded with traffic. Applications for the new fund were pouring in. Venture partners from across the globe were requesting meetings. "This is bigger than we projected," said Camille Ortiz, looking stunned. "We knew it would matter, but this is movement-level energy." Lexi tapped her phone and said, "You just got a call from the White House liaison. The president wants to meet." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That soon?" "Tomorrow." He nodded slowly, letting that sink in. Then he turned to the wall, where a large glass board was filled with handwritten goals and future plans. He picked up a marker and, beneath the list of initiatives, wrote one simple line: "Redefine power." Meanwhile, at a small airport in South Carolina, Captain Reynolds sat in front of a television, watching Marcus speak. The video showed the same man he had dismissed hours earlier, now being celebrated across the world. Reynolds sank back in his chair, face pale. His phone buzzed with messages from friends and family. Some asking what were you thinking? Others offering hollow support. He stared at the screen, watching Marcus's calm, unwavering expression, and for the first time, he saw not just a man on stage, but the man he should have seen on that tarmac. The following morning, Marcus stood in his office, gazing out over the Manhattan skyline. His schedule was packed: meetings, interviews, even a private session with the president. But before any of that, he had one meeting that wasn't on the calendar. A quiet knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said. The door opened, and Dana stepped inside, her expression uncertain. Behind her was someone Marcus didn't expect to see: Captain Reynolds. The former pilot looked different now. No uniform. Just a plain jacket, eyes full of remorse. "Mr. Devlin," Reynolds said softly. "Thank you for seeing me." Marcus turned slowly, his face unreadable. Dana gave a quick nod and closed the door behind her, leaving them alone. "I wasn't going to come," Reynolds continued, "but after everything that's happened, I had to." Marcus crossed his arms. "You had to what? Apologize? Or save face?" Reynolds hesitated. "Both, maybe. I've spent the last 24 hours thinking about what I did. How fast I judged you. No excuse makes it right. I looked at you and made an assumption, one I've made more times than I care to admit." Marcus said nothing. "Let the silence do the work." "I've already lost my job," Reynolds added. "And I deserve that. But I just needed you to know. I'm sorry. Deeply." Marcus studied him, the tension in the room sharp. "Finally," he said, "I don't need your apology. But I hope you do." Reynolds blinked, taken aback, "Because until you face the root of why you reacted that way, this moment means nothing. Don't apologize to me, do better for the next person." Reynolds nodded slowly. "I will." As he turned to leave, Marcus called out, "Captain." He paused. "Next time, don't assume a man's worth by the color of his skin. Assume he owns the plane." A week after the incident, Marcus stood at the rooftop terrace of Devlin Capital Ventures, watching the sunset paint the skyline in gold and crimson. The city hummed below, busy, loud, alive. Just like the mission he had ignited, the Devlin initiative had already attracted over 3,000 applications from minority entrepreneurs across the globe. His team had fast-tracked dozens of promising ideas for review, and meetings with leaders in finance, tech, and education were happening around the clock. But this moment wasn't about numbers. It was about legacy. Lexi joined him on the rooftop, handing him a folder. These are the first 5 startups you're backing. I thought you might want to make the calls personally. Marcus flipped through the pages, eyes scanning the faces of young founders. A teen robotics inventor from Atlanta. A black woman building a clean water startup in Flint. A formerly incarcerated coder launching an app for re-entry support. Every story hit him hard. Everyone reminded him of where he came from. These people don't just need money, Marcus said quietly. They need someone who believes in them. Who sees them before the world does. Lexi smiled. That's what you've always done. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his mother. Saw your speech. So proud of you, baby. Your grandma would have cried happy tears today. He smiled and looked up at the sky, as if somehow she could hear him. Marcus turned to Lexi. We're just getting started. Let's build a world where no one is underestimated for how they look. Let's make sure no kid with a dream gets turned away at the gate. He looked out over the city, bold, unshaken, and whispered to himself, next time, they'll know who I am. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Too many people are judged by appearances before they ever get a chance to show their worth. We all have a role to play in changing that. Share this story to spark conversations, support minority-owned businesses. Speak out against bias, invest in equity, not just financially, but socially, and if you've ever been underestimated, let this be your reminder, your value isn't defined by anyone else's assumptions. Stand tall. Speak truth. Own your worth. Change begins with one bold step. Will you take it?